Well, let me tell you something. We're here live, real time, and let me mute it. We need to see those scorecards. So let me break it down to you. We're here live, real time, February the 26th, 5:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I think that man right there, Jack Catterall, by a slim punt hair, should be your new undisputed champion of the world. I'm T3 Controversy with Fight View 360, the WBC channel, powered by the Vive Network. Josh Taylor was in one mode, pretty much looking for a knockout, no real skill in the fight. One of his ugliest, if not ugliest, performance on this level. Jack Catterall, I think the ESPN broadcaster said it best, pretty basic fighter, jab, straight. But the problem is, look, that was a point deduction right there. The ref took some point deductions off that I feel were unjust. One against Jack Catterall when Josh Taylor was the one initiating a lot of the holding, and the other for some after round dapping up. Weird fight. But honestly, we're in Scotland, remember. And don't be surprised if Jack Catterall, see now, I don't feel I can call it a robbery because it is a close fight. But this is my personal opinion. I was going to cuss. This is my personal opinion. All right. I'm sitting here watching it. This is one of those fights, depending on what you were looking for. Yeah, Josh Taylor is the aggressor, but you had Jack Catterall being in more control, landing the cleaner, effective punches. Pause it if you have to. Here's the punch stats. Let me turn it up. Take your time out. Like the video, subscribe.
Outthrowing him 525 to 306. His production diminished down the stretch. After that 8th round, in which Catterall had the knockdown scored, he never again hit double-digit connects.
He did slow down in the second half, last quarter or so of the fight. But I'm really interested to see these scorecards, because if Josh Taylor gets it, and remember, there's no rematch clause if Jack Catterall wins. Who is Jack Catterall's promoter, by the way? Is he still with Frank Warren Queensberry? And Josh Taylor was made the WBO super champion to be mandatory for Terence Crawford if he was to move up to 147. He said in a pre-fight interview with Mark Kriegel that he's interested in one, maybe two more fights at 140 pounds. Terence Crawford is the fight that he wants, though, even though that's at 147. Jose Cepeda is his WBC mandatory. He says he'll knock out Tank Davis because Tank Davis is too small. Teofimo Lopez, he says he doesn't like Teofimo Lopez, doesn't want to talk about him because he was trying to use his name for clout. But right now, this eliminates the boogeyman status of a Josh Taylor. Like he looked super vulnerable tonight. It may be because this is his only fight since his only defense since he won off of Jose Ramirez. When was that? Last May? He had some issues in camp. From my understanding, this fight was supposed to happen in December. We're about to listen to the cards. Take your time out. Like the video. Subscribe. And T3 Controversy with Fight View 360. Remember, this is for all the marbles, and they're in Scotland on Josh Taylor's home turf. So let's see if it's some hometown cooking.
We go to the judges' scorecards for the official decision. Howard Foster scores the bout 113-112 Catterall. Ian John Lewis scores the bout 114-111 Taylor. Victor Laughlin scores the bout 113-112 for your winner by split decision. And still undisputed super lightweight champion of the world, the Tartan Tornado.
So it was written. The cards were already dealt. The cards were already dealt.
As it can get to maintain the status
by the skin of his nuts. He made it out of there. He made it out of there.
Decision.
Despite having a point deduction and being dropped.
112 card that was last to be ran.
Boy, that's boxing for you. That's boxing for you.
We welcome you to the state of boxing. Joe Tessitore, Andre Ward, Tim Bradley, and Mark Kriegel. We will take it post-fight with you for all the reaction.
Here, let's see if they do a post-fight interview. So listen, I'm going to go ahead and say that, I had, it's one of those fights that could have went either way depending on what you were looking for, especially since it is true that Catterall slowed down the second half of the fight. Last quarter or so of the fight. Now, Josh Taylor, he's got some significant things he's got to work on because right now, this type of win, he didn't look good. And, his boogeyman status has dropped. He looked like a bully in there with no real skill. Jack Catterall's just, he getting the fuck out of there. He getting the fuck out of there. He is pissed. He is hot.
Could not see him landing that left hand over and over the way that he did. And you got to give him credit for that. We need some explanations from Josh Taylor because that's not the Josh Taylor that we've come to know.
Mark Kriegel.
There's nothing in Catterall's resume to suggest this would happen. He hasn't fought guys like Ivan Baranchek, hasn't fought guys like Regis Prograis, hasn't fought guys like Jose Ramirez. Apparently, however, he didn't get the memo. I thought the decision was a bit of home cooking. Joe, you cited the CompuBox numbers before, and I'm always loath to put too much value in the CompuBox numbers, but 120 to 73, that's a fairly substantial lead. I cannot help but wonder, and we saw the footage from the weigh-in yesterday, I cannot help but wonder if Catterall got into Taylor's head in the same way that Taylor got into Ramirez's head some months ago.
Choked
Do you
each other.
believe that to be true, Tim Brad?
Okay, let me mute that. I'm interested in who Josh Taylor's going to fight next. Now, he's been made the mandatory if he decides to move up to 147. A lot of people may say, okay, well, maybe it's time for him to move up, in weight. But this looked like a skill, issue in there regarding, skill and game plan. He just was going out there trying to knock Jack Catterall out because just like myself, and other boxing media and fans, we didn't know anything about Jack Catterall. Yeah, I've covered him and watched him fight before, but to think that, he would be able to go in there and do what he did tonight against Josh Taylor, it was, with the run that Josh Taylor has been on the last few years, it was hard to predict that tonight was going to go the way that it did. Unless you are a hardcore super, Jack Catterall fan and you just saw something like, yo, that jab in the left hand, Josh Taylor ain't going to be able to get through that. You see what I'm saying? So now it's like, okay, bro, from what I've seen tonight, Terence Crawford will put a boot in Josh Taylor's ass, probably stop him. Especially if he switched southpaw on him. That's it. It's curtains. Looking at the 140-pound division as a whole, Josh Taylor, yeah, he'll do good against Zepeda. Yeah, if he fights Jose Ramirez again, the winner of Jose Ramirez versus Jose Pedraza. But frankly, I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening. I see Josh Taylor maybe having one more fight at 140, and he's going to be gone. That's it. He's moving up. Hell, he might even move up after this fight. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. Okay, here's the post-fight interview.
You've retained your titles, you've still got them in a split decision.
Yeah.
Did you believe that you had done enough over those 12 rounds to keep hold of your belts?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I thought I started a little slow. But once I got into my rhythm and started getting my timing in a little bit, I started catching with the bigger shots. And, he was trying to spoil a lot, going down an awful lot. I clashed a lot of my heads, But, he caught me a couple of good shots as well, I'm not going to lie. But, yeah, it wasn't my best performance, I put a hell of a lot of my pressure on myself. This couple of weeks, it's been my homecoming, the first time in 3 years, the first time since lockdown and all that. Back at home, I put a hell of a lot of my pressure on myself with being the heavy favourite, and it showed in the first half of the fight. But once I got my rhythm, I started catching with the bigger shots and catching them out. Wasn't my best performance, but I believe I got the win, 100% got the win. But Jack did very well.
What was it tonight that meant that you couldn't find that rhythm that we've been so accustomed to seeing?
I'm not sure, you know, I think I just put a little bit too much pressure on myself, you know, with being the heavy favourite, being the first time at home, you know, put my pressure on to put on such a good show. I put all my pressure on myself to put on a good show in front of my home fans, but it didn't matter in the end. You know, I got the good result. I know I won the fight. It was close. I let him have a little bit too much more success with me loading up a little bit, but overall I scored the bigger shots, the better shots, the more meaningful shots. You know, so I knew I won the fight. But it was a little bit close, but I knew I won the fight.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. You don't score the fight, but the general consensus online, I know those guys don't matter, but the general consensus online was that Jack Catterall was unlucky not to leave here with the belts tonight.
He put up a good fight, that's for sure, but he never won the fight. He never won the fight, and he knows he never won the fight, you know, so I believe I won. They came along, the 4, 5, 5, 6, 7 in the second half of the fight, I started taking over. So, yeah, it wasn't my best performance, and yeah, but we move forward, we've got the win, and that's it.
I have to ask you about the weight, not that you would ever use any excuses for anything, but all the talk is about how you looked at 10 stone 140. Yeah. Is that your last fight at 140? Can you still campaign at this level and get the best Josh Taylor? Yes, you made it, but are you leaving a lot on the floor?
I made the weight pretty well. I made the weight good, but it is getting harder to make that weight. You know, it is getting harder. That most likely will be my last fight at 140. But we'll sit down with my team. I left it a little bit late as well to start the preparations for making the weight cut that fight with the injuries and stuff. You know, so we left it a little bit late and taking the weight off because I couldn't get the weight off with the times with my condition and the running and things like that with my knee injury and stuff. So I left it a little bit late to get the weight off, but I still made the weight and I still performed, but it showed a little bit in my performance. But we'll sit down with my team, but most likely that'll probably be my last performance at 140.
That probably answers my next question. You're probably going to have to deal with some calls for a rematch. Would you entertain that, or is that weight too much of a problem now that you couldn't do it again, even if you had to?
We'll see how it goes. I don't think there is any need for a rematch. I think I won the fight. I won the fight with a couple of rounds. I won the fight in the second half of the fight. You know, I took over, bossed him. You know, he was doing a hell of a lot of holding and spoiling. And then I think the ref taking a point off me probably hurt me a little bit. But I still won the fight. I still won the fight.
You've kept hold of your belts. I hope you think I don't think I'm being disrespectful. I pointed out you don't score it. You've kept the belts. Well done.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
All right.
Yeah, bro, that's it. You know, he just said that's his last fight at 140 pounds. You know, it's time to move on, and Jack Catterall ain't never going to get his rematch ever. That's it. You know, and yeah, you know, when you're in foreign land, those last few rounds, you know, 4 rounds, I would love to see like the actual scorecard. The judges wasn't going to give, you know, it to Jack Catterall. You know, they don't like that shit, especially the hometown cooking. You know, that's always going to play a factor, unfortunately. You know, but, you know, Jack Catterall's stock has risen. And, you know, I wonder what his weight situation is. You know, maybe he wants to go up to 147 too. You know, but yeah, the referee with the point deductions, that was a little fucked up. He explained it, you know, as far as like, yes, it was a bad performance. You know, hopefully, well, this is what I think. I don't think that he's going to run right into a title shot 147 pounds first. I believe, pause it if you have to for the punch stats, I believe he's probably going to have like an interim fight first in the top ranked stable or so at 147 before he, you know, moves on. Maybe a Kavalaskis, depending on what he's doing. You know, I know he fought a Virgil Ortiz over on the zone. You know, that's what I believe is going to do. It's going to be some type of interim entry fight at 147 before he goes at a title shot, especially with the way that, you know, he looked tonight. Let me see if Top Rank has put the scorecard online for the fight, because I want to see how those last few rounds were scored. I want to see how those last few rounds were scored. No, we didn't get the scorecard. Let me see. Scorecard. Like, I want to see the round breakdown. But since we're live real time, you know, I don't think we're going to get it. Andre Ward's scorecard was crazy, by the way. In my opinion, you know, people, you know, score fights differently. But the first half of the fight, you know, you can make an argument that it was 6-2, you know, or even 5-1 for Catterall. You know, and yes, the last half, I'm going to say quarter of the fight where Jack Catterall, whether it was, you know, all the wrestling that slowed him down or whatever, he slowed down and didn't close it out. No, the scorecard has not been uploaded. Well, anyway, follow me on Twitter at T Street Controversy. Also, the links to my social media down below in the description box. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. I am T Street Controversy with FightView360.com.